Hi, everyone, and welcome to Kitchen Conversations. I am so excited today to be doing this show from home in my kitchen, and I am going to be welcoming Snohomish County Councilmember Megan Dunn. Megan, welcome to my kitchen and welcome to Kitchen Conversations. Hopefully you got a yummy beverage. Yay, cheers.
Yay, cheers.
Just like you were here with me. And I'm excited because we're talking about the environment today. Yes, it still matters. Yes, it's still a thing. Even despite being in this awful pandemic, it's still really, really important. And thank you, Megan, for being an environmental champion. And I'll just kind of let you introduce yourself and who you are quickly to our viewers.
Oh, thank you. Hello, everyone. My name is Megan Dunn. I'm the Snohomish County Council person for District 2. So that includes Everett, Tulalip, and Mukilteo. And I'm just happy to be here and proud to be supporting April.
Thank you so much. And I think we've had some awesome guests the last few weeks. And I feel like this week has been, it's been a big week for intersections of everything, right? We've got a public health crisis. We've got racial unrest and some really good conversations going on about racial bias and racial justice. And then this week, I was super excited to get an endorsement from the Sierra Club and the Washington Conservation Voters. And that had me thinking about the intersection in a pandemic of race and the environment. So we should let's hop in there. And I know with your work in the city and in the county, and how do you see that intersection between race and the environment during this time?
Yeah, you are starting with the biggest topic.
I know, right? Right in.
I do have good news to share, but yeah, I think that COVID has really exposed that intersectionality. So it has exposed where our frontline communities live and how they experience disproportionate health impacts. And so that's exacerbated by having a pandemic. And those are the same things that will be exacerbated with climate change and with like the need for climate justice. So the Front and Center is a really great environmental organization that's rooted in equity and the environment and environmental justice. And they've made some really great correlations between the need for a call to justice and understanding that there's underlying health issues and inequalities that make it worse for everyone. And we see it played out, and we see the statistics for that at the local level. So the Snohomish Health District actually has statistics on who has been tested positive for COVID, and it's proportionally impacting our people of color in Snohomish County, almost twice as much the testing. Yeah, so like I put it in my op-ed, but for every 100,000 people, 200 people, Black people people who consider themselves Latino. It's like 198 for Latino and 200 for Black people. So, and then 89 or in the 80s for people who consider themselves white. So we think that's mainly because our essential workers, our frontline workers, people who are most likely in customer service or in those kind of low wage jobs that are more interactions with people are more exposed. And so they are more likely to be exposed and then more likely to test positive.
So and I think with some of these, or with all of it, these are underlying equities that were there pre-COVID, right? Like it's just that COVID kind of highlights it and shows the damage that's done when we let these inequities fester. So I had no idea about the numbers from our county. So just to kind of double back on, so I know you work with a lot of great organizations. You're just saying you had some good news. And so maybe tell folks just a little bit about some of the organizations that you're working with and some of the things going on there.
Oh, sure. Well, one thing I wanted to share is that one of the good things that we're seeing and good for the environment is that we're seeing more local connections and local supply chains. That's something that came up with the conversations I had with businesses as well. So I had sector meetings. I had 6 sector meetings and 2 advisory group meetings, and I wanted to be as inclusive process as possible. So I really wanted to hear from the mom and pop shops. I wanted to hear from workers. We had unemployed electrician. We had major manufacturers, we had small manufacturers, retail, everyone. And that's one big change, is that we're seeing a need for local supply chains, because there's, there's less movement. Everyone is staying inside. It's very hard to rely on an international supply chain right now. So people are looking for local suppliers. So that's been really good for encouraging just local sustainability. And then our county has just piloted a project today called Nourishing Neighborhoods, and they connected with local farmers, and they're distributing healthy local produce to neighborhoods that need it. So we have a great system for food banks. We have a great local system for getting perishable and non-perishable foods out there, but farmers were kind of stuck with having a lot of produce and not being able to get rid of it. There were restaurants that aren't, the supply chains were kind of down because restaurants weren't ordering food and no one was going to restaurants. So everything just kind of was put on pause. So I just found out today they delivered. So what that effort was the county is working with, they've identified some kind of hotspots, places that are food insecure and also have limited transit, and they're bringing the food to them. And they actually delivered 120 20-pound boxes of fresh produce to a neighborhood in Marysville. So it's a way to just like connect farmers with food banks and with people who need food and healthy food, not like processed beans and rice.
No, and that's huge. You don't want the junk food, but I think that was kind of that missing piece, because a lot of the farmers have talked about not being able to use their traditional supply chains, and having things that are in just quantities that were too big for a typical consumer. So kind of this farm to neighborhood idea. I love it. Nourishing neighborhoods. That's something folks at home definitely look into. And I love that you guys have looked at that intersection, those food deserts, right? Where transportation options are limited as well as fresh food options, and making that connection. I think that's one of those lasting things that COVID, post-COVID, hopefully that connection stays, because it's really important. Speaking about post-COVID things and environmental changes that might be positive, folks aren't commuting as much. And so, in terms of the impact, that's been positive, but, I just frankly, people are like, so why are we talking about the environment? No one's commuting. There's no smog. Did you see that picture of LA? It's totally clear, let's just call it a day, but the environment's still important. And so what are your thoughts on that? How do you talk with folks through, it's going well now, but what are we looking at?
Yeah, I think that it's been great. And there's still an access issue. Not everyone can telecommute. When you think about equity as well, if you're a frontline like consumer, someone who deals directly with consumers, then you don't have the option to telecommute. So a lot of those jobs were, if you were sent home, you didn't have the option to work. So one thing I was encouraging is cross training, so that we could have job sharing and people could share those responsibilities.
Yeah.
But if people aren't driving, then there's no gas tax. And then there's,
that's a good point.
I went like 2 months without filling up my car. I was like, this is great. But like 5% of the overall budget for our public works department comes from gas tax. So that is now lower, and now that needs to come from somewhere else. So that is something long-term. We probably should not be funding certain things with gas tax. We need to come up with a better revenue stream for that. But the traffic and the commuting and the ability to telecommute so that people are staying home, I think has been really great. The other thing, it's not related to the environment, but one reason some of the early models were off for hospitals is because there were no car accidents. There were fewer car accidents. And so not as many people were in the hospital. So our hospitals were less overwhelmed than we thought they'd be. But with telling everybody to stay home, like, it's been a lot safer. So fewer motorcycle accidents, fewer pedestrian accidents. So that's the good news, which kind of shows the need for just having different options for telecommuting and telework.
Mhm.
And when I was campaigning, that was one question that we got about like the east and west traffic and what would you do to reduce traffic. And I was like, why aren't we talking to major employers to find out what they could do to telecommute? And
Yeah.
I didn't really know if it would have an impact, but I'd say it definitely has.
I think we've proven that with this.
Yeah.
Yeah. And even just, you've got kiddos at home and you've got families just
Mhm.
not doing even post after school activities and weekend activities as much. So
Right.
it's really cut down. I know folks are kind of, I've talked with a couple of voters who are uneasy about doing public transit when it comes back on for a variety of reasons. And
Mhm.
so I think from, I know you do work with the health department and community transit. It feels like they're taking a lot of really good precautions in terms of the drivers, in terms of the spacing, in terms of the cleaning. So just kind of as an elected, do you feel comfortable with folks getting on that community transit bus to get to their employment?
Yeah, I think that yeah, I don't know if we have to have like a certification or something to give people
Yeah.
better confidence for anything, for going to buy a
Mhm.
car, for going to a restaurant, or to have the steps in place, and then for that business, for that bus, um, for that space to just say like these are the
Mhm.
requirements we've met. We've got a similar question with like opening up our playgrounds and our parks.
Oh, yeah.
Our parks department, like every couple hours, sometimes 4 or 5 times a day, people are just
Wow.
ripping down the keep off tape. So
Oh, the things.
can
Yeah.
we just tell people like, okay, they're open, but you have to use hand sanitizer,
Hmm.
you're playing at your own risk at some
Yeah.
point.
Yeah.
Um, but
That's so hard. I didn't even think about the parks part of it because we see the yellow tape,
the
but you're
trails
probably
are open.
right.
Yeah,
Yeah, the trails are open, but the actual little germ factories that we
playgrounds.
call
Yeah, I know they are.
because you can't sanitize them enough. And so
Yeah,
that's a hard one. I know as a parent, it's hard to say no, you can't get on that, but it's necessary right now. Well,
yeah,
and I think so this is a lot of challenges, and I think there's going to come some real opportunities, and maybe to your point about taxation and over reliance on certain forms of taxation that encourage bad behavior, right? Like encourage us to use more gas so that we can fund more projects. And so, for me, is there going to be some upside? Is there going to be some new ways of thinking post COVID? Do you think when it comes to environment and funding?
yeah. I think that it's really forcing us to look at our budgets and our values and what we really want to invest in. Um, Public transit didn't do fare, so they had everything was fare free
Mhm.
for a month or two. So that shows that we could have that process. So we could have
Yeah,
we could we could we didn't necessarily need to be policing people who can't afford to ride the bus.
yeah,
Um, and I think the local supply chains are good. I think the bad side is that everything's disposable, right? So we
yeah.
need to, we're goodbye cloth bags. They're saying you have to use disposable bags or where I shop, they said you can use your own bags, but you have to do it. And then it
Get your
makes a
pack.
long line and everyone's looking at you. And
Yeah.
um,
Well, and that I was going to ask you about that because that is kind of that kitchen table issue. That's for so many families. That's a direct impact, right? I was so excited when the state passed the plastic bag ban. And I thought this is phenomenal because I've been wanting it in our small city. And now you have to. I mean, I've seen practical fisticuffs break out in certain markets because people bring in their bags, they're told not to use them, and then things aren't said in a gracious manner. Next thing you know, people are very, very upset. So what would you suggest to the folks at home listening in terms of, bringing a bag or bagging it themselves, or any suggestions?
yeah. Um, yeah, it's hard because it, I don't know why disposable means healthy, right? Like we
Yeah.
need to be looking at it on a bigger time frame.
Mhm.
I saw that one restaurant was giving people paper menus that then they would throw away. And so they said, well, we're giving one menu per table, so you can share it, but then we're just going to throw it
Throw
away.
'em away.
So, we could wipe down menus, but that takes time. And so I understand that there's like a need to kind of figure all this out. I think there's been some good innovation, like the Snohomish Airport, the Painfield Airport has robots that are scanning touch surfaces and using infrared or UV
Yeah.
light to kill the germs. You don't want to put that in your body, but
Yeah, it's not a personal, request to put it. Yeah. But for surfaces, that's a good thing.
So that's a way to not have, disposable wipes and everything that's just thrown away afterwards. So they've found some ways to have this process be less of a long-term environmental impact. So I think, we need to be looking at that kind of triple bottom line. Like, is it people, planet, profit? What are some ways that we can still hold to our environmental values and not necessarily make it all totally disposable?
Okay, I love what you just said, Megan. Like, I always write
Triple
down the
bottom
whole thing.
line. Yeah.
Triple bottom line. Is that you? Like, I love that. So you said triple bottom line, and what is it? People, planet, profit.
Yep.
I love that, and that's a great way to think of it.
Yeah. Because we recognize businesses have to be around. That business, that restaurant has to survive. They need to make profit, but you got to keep people in mind and the equity issues and planet as well. Yeah.
Well, and the other thing I just thought of, there was a voter I was talking to, actually a community member, and they had their suggestion or what they were doing at the grocery store, which I actually thought was pretty innovative. They just filled up their cart they would check out and they would put it right back in the cart. They then brought their cart out to their car with their bags. And they put them in there and then put the cart back.
That's a great idea.
And I thought, that's a good way to do it. That way, to your point, you're not holding up the line or doing something that's seen as like, oh, she's making us unsafe, but it's like, just put it right. So yeah, maybe just back in the cart. That might be a way.
And wash your bags.
And yes, well, and we all should have been doing that to begin with. When some people were saying like about, oh, I don't know if I've washed this in 2 years. I'm like, okay, that's a you thing. Like we need to all be cleansing our bags that go out of our house on random grocery carts. So, so hopefully that's a good habit, along with more hand washing that we've all gotten to do. And I think, to your point about I love that, the triple bottom line. Because so many small business owners, sometimes they feel like environmental concerns or the environment is just instantly going to take away their profit, instantly make them go bankrupt. And so even in this time, we're really sensitive to small businesses. And like you're saying with your Nourishing Neighborhoods program and different ways to connect people in this space, I guess, are there other connections you could see that we could really be helping out our small business folks, still maintaining our focus on the planet, and still making sure they have profits?
Yeah, maybe energy efficiency issues like that. Like that's something that when there's investments in energy efficiency and retrofits and even to something like helping with that local supply chain, that will reduce over time. That is found to save money and has a better environmental impact.
Yeah, that's awesome. I just think even just having the discussions helps, because that way, as consumers and as citizens and as people in the street, we can actually say this we need to be thinking about profits for our small businesses and for our communities, because we want them thriving, but we can do that and still take care of the environment. So that's huge. So I think too, so at the state level, I always ask folks on the show, what do you think the state can be doing in this moment, especially when it comes to environmental policy, and how we're going to hopefully be better than we started post-COVID? What kind of goals do you see the state maybe setting?
Yeah. Well, we've still been seeing a problem with waste. So that's one of my big concerns and one of the reasons I supported the clean fuel standard. So I'd still really love to see a clean fuel standard at the state. Then we could have one regionally. But like for our county, they shut down the transfer stations, or they only had them open for one day. And right now they're not accepting hazardous waste and recycling. They're going to be opening that up soon, but they had to shut it down mainly for keeping staff safe and social distancing. But then we noticed the Puget Sound Clean Air Agency does studies every day and testing on particulate matter. And they noticed particulate matter was up higher than normal.
Mhm.
partially because people were burning their
Right.
trash. So
Yep.
we weren't driving, but people were burning trash. And so I reached
Mhm.
out to the exec and to facilities and said, could we go back to opening those transfer
Yeah.
stations? Because now it's getting worse. Because they
Mhm.
also study that if you are exposed to air pollution, you are more likely to have worse impacts from COVID because it's
Mhm.
affecting your lungs. So the particulate matter will irritate your lungs. That makes the response to COVID even worse. And then, and we also know that some populations experience lung issues more than
Yeah.
others. So it was making things harder for urban populations or for rural
Yeah.
populations. And so it's like, can we go back to opening these transfer stations? So it's like, making these
Yeah.
decisions on a more holistic way. But it just brings me back to that need for biofuels and a need to do more with our waste. Because every day we're shipping out, just tons and tons of waste down to a different part of the state. Um, it's a huge toxicity exposure and other
Mhm.
issues. And if we can melt it all down and turn it into fuel or compost more of it, divert it from the waste stream. But we know that burning it is not good.
Yeah. Well, and speaking of composting, I mean, that's one thing. I am a big advocate in our family. I always believe in, like, if you can teach your family, then when they have families, they're going to do it. And just kind of it's a generational thing. But so I've had people ask me, is composting, is that something at a state level we could say people need to be doing with their kitchen scraps and things like that? Like, what are your thoughts on that?
I think incentives or different ways to promote it, make it easier, like the 3 or 4 bin system. Some
Yeah.
local garbage companies have that as an option, some don't. If we had a bottle redemption service, a statewide one, that would be huge.
Yes.
Yeah, Oregon's has like a 90% return rate on their bottles and
They
cans.
do. And they also have a clean fuel standard. To your point about the
Yes,
regionalization of that, I'm always like,
yes.
they did it. Like, why can't we, move the ball in that
Mhm.
direction? But no, the bottle redemption. So I'll tell you, I went to college in Oregon, and that thing was a lifesaver to put the gas in my tank some days. And when I moved up
Go find
here,
bottles. Yeah.
yeah, because you go collect the bottles and friends like, hey, we need to get, I mean, okay, granted, gas was, I think, $1, maybe $1.05 a gallon. So it was a doable thing. But that said, when I moved up here, I was really shocked. I had to pump my own gas, and B, I couldn't find bottles to collect to pay for said gas. So yeah, that was a hard month, that first month. but I think, to your point, that is something that the state could actually do, and it works, right? We've got lots of states that have that. So
Yeah.
yeah, hopefully,
Talking about garbage at the kitchen table.
yeah, exactly. Exactly. It's like, so how do we take care of all the stuff that's on the table? Like, everything should have a place. So it's great to talk about these issues, I think, because they're real. And in this moment, part of having you on and having this be a focus is for folks not to forget how important the environment is, even though we've got a lot of stuff on our plate right now. And that it affects even our ability to fight off COVID and to recover from COVID, because if our air quality isn't there, then we're not going to be able to fight it as well. And so, yeah, so I think as we kind of wrap up our conversation, I know you sit in the health district, right? Like, that's another hat that you kind of wear as a part of your position. So is there anything you want to leave folks with today, just from, either the county level or from health, in terms of what we can take away from the environment and post-COVID?
No, I mean, I think you said it best, that we can't be forgetting about it at this time. And it's not an excuse to COVID should not be an excuse to throw everything in the garbage
Yeah,
can.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And it's showing the need for better, more sustainability and better synchronicity, like better connections with each other and with others. Yeah, and then having it go local. I think that'll be the
Yeah.
best way to recover quicker.
And I love that. I love the thought of going local. And thank you for bringing up Nourishing Neighborhoods. And maybe after the show, you can pop over a link and I'll connect that with this broadcast. That way folks will just be able to learn more about it. Even if
Yeah,
there's
it
not.
is still early. That is an
I was
early
gonna
pilot
say, yeah,
project
that's
that they're working on. Yeah, I might get in
yeah.
trouble for telling
That's
people
true. It's just like,
to
okay,
say bye.
wait, but it's there. But I will say, you do so much work at the county level. County council is one of those unsung jobs where folks go, what do you do? And let me tell viewers out there, they do everything, right? You're dealing with health, you're dealing with safety, you're dealing with land use issues. I mean, just everything you can think of. I've got some broadband issues I want to talk to you about later. I mean, when I think of anything that pops in my head, normally I'm like, oh, county council is a place where they might be able to affect change. So thank you for that service. Thank you for those long meetings. And I will definitely probably have some more stuff to contact you about. But and thank you for being here today and talking about the environment.
Yes, absolutely. And I hope to come, I hope to come and see you in Olympia.
Yes, I hope so too. That way you'll have your list for me and I'll have my list for you. And we can say, okay, well, here's the stuff we got to figure out and get done. So, well, thank you for being an environmental champion. Just always, it's not a new thing for you. That's what I've loved about your career, is that you've always had that priority, and that I'm going to use this triple bottom line. You've been able to keep that in focus as you serve. So thank you so much. And thank everyone out there watching us today on Kitchen Conversations. We spent it with Megan Dunn, Snohomish County Council member, talking about the environment. Everyone have a really safe week. Join us next week at 3 p.m. on Tuesday for another enlightening Kitchen Conversations. Thanks, Megan, so much. Have a great rest of your day, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye-bye.